folks, we're live here, and we're going to do a live stream of Genesis 4. And yeah, as you know, we've done Genesis 1 through Genesis 1 through 3, and I'm going to go back and re-record those and put them up on YouTube for anybody that's missed them, and I'll send the links. But anyway, Genesis 4. And let me pop on over here to over to my monitor here, and we begin with, now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have acquired a man for the Lord. Okay, so they produced another son, who will later learn his name is Seth, and that he is basically the replacement for Abel. So then she bore again, this time, oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about Cain and Abel. Now, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of the game here. It's Genesis 5 where we talk about the righteousness. Sorry. Then she bore again, this time, his brother Abel. Now Adam, no, she bore Cain, then she bore Abel, then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Okay, it doesn't say in here whether this was the first fruits or whether this was unblemished fruit. It's just fruit of the ground. So the general idea is he brought whatever he didn't want to make sacrifice. Abel also brought of the firstborn, first of the flock, which is what the sacrifices say we should bring, the first of the flock, and of their fat, and the Lord respected Abel and his offering. But he did not respect Cain and his offering, and Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So, if you look at Leviticus and what you're supposed to do with these sacrifices, and people say, "Oh well, you know, this didn't apply until Moses wrote it down." I'm sorry, it applied, and so they what they're supposed to be is the first of the flock and unblemished, and it looks like Cain brought whatever was lying around. So God respected Abel's sacrifice but didn't respect Cain. So the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desires for you, but you should rule over it. Okay, so doing well, being righteous. Okay, if you do what God wants you to do in His Word, then you will do well. Okay, doesn't mean we're going to get $1 million and we're going to be living this opulent lifestyle. That means we're going to be able to get what we need and not be truly afflicted. So, and so if we don't do well, sin lies at the door, and its desires for you. This means that if you don't do well, if you're not righteous, you're going to be living a sinful life, and sin's going to rule over you. But if you do well, you yourself will rule over sin. In other words, you will have control. So now Cain talked with his brother, with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel and his brother and killed him. So Cain was jealous of what Abel had. Abel had acceptance of his sacrifices from God, and that's what Abel had, but Cain did not. So Cain was jealous. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" So in other words, you know, it's not my problem. So, and he said, "What you have done, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." So God knew that Cain killed Abel. "So now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. A fugitive and a vagabond you shall be on the earth." And Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth, and it will happen that anyone who finds me will kill me." Okay, does this sound like here that Cain is repenting of what he did? It seems to me that all in verse 13 and 14, it sounds like it's all about him. You know, all he cares about is himself. So he doesn't care about his brother, and he isn't remorseful that he killed his brother. All he cares about is for himself. So the Lord said to him, "Therefore whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken out on him sevenfold." And the Lord set a mark on Cain, lest anyone find him should kill him. So basically, Cain was marked so that people could tell who he was. And a lot of people come up with all kinds of things as to what this mark is, and so on and so forth. But honestly, in your life, if you've run across somebody like Cain, don't you almost immediately know who or what they are, what type of person they are? Generally, you can tell. And that's exactly what the situation is here. Particularly if you're living a righteous life, you can tell who the ones are that are not righteous. Now, that's not any kind of pride or anything. It's just that it's sort of like a radar that you can tell. So then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Okay, so Cain knew his wife. Where did his wife come from? And people say, "Oh, well, it was his sister." If you remember back in Genesis 1, on day 6, God created all of mankind. Every single human that was to exist at that time was created on day 6. And that included Adam, and Adam was taken into the garden. But there were other humans on the earth at the time. So there were, and which means that if you remember from Genesis 1, let's go back there. Okay, we'll come back to the family of Cain here in a minute. Let's go back to Genesis 1. Okay, come on down here to right here. Okay, right there. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. So you look here at, come back to Genesis 4. So, the family of Cain. Cain knew his wife. His wife was one of those that was created back on day 6. Okay. So, to Enoch was born Arad, and Arad begot Maholiel. Pardon me for the pronunciations here. And Maholiel begot Methusiel, and Methusiel begot Lamech, Okay, so what do we got here? Cain was the first part of the first was the first generation of actually yeah, Cain was the first generation of the iniquity. Enoch was the second generation of the iniquity. Okay, iniquity goes 3 or 4 generations. So Lamech would have been the third generation. So it's a possibility the iniquity, which is unrepentance of sin. Okay, so it's highly possible here that with the generation of Lamech, the third generation, that iniquity could have been disbanded. But look at what happens here with Lamech. Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal, okay, who was the father of those who dwell in the tents and livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. His father, he was the father of all those who played the harp and flute. And as for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. So then, look at 423. Then Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, wives of Lamech, listen to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold. Okay, so what's Lamech doing here? Lamech is boasting of the fact that he murdered a man. Okay, he sinned again, has no remorse for it, is not repenting of it, and he's telling his 2 wives about it in a boastful manner, and therefore he's just starting the iniquity all over again. It could have the iniquity could have ended with his generation, but he has restarted it. So after his generation, okay, so we got Lamech here. So that's generation 1. Jabal is generation 2. Jabal and then Jubal, okay, they're both part of generation 2. And then we've got we've got Zillah, Tubal-Cain, and Tubal-Cain is the last generation of Cain, the line of Cain, because right after that we got the flood. So then going back to Adam, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. So Seth was the replacement for Abel. Okay, so if you're looking at the line, of iniquity, the line of iniquity is the line of Cain, and if you're looking at a line of righteousness, it begins right here. Well, it actually began with Adam, but Adam was the son of God, but after the fall he was cursed, and imperfection was found in him, and Seth is now the son of Adam. He's not a son of God. Well, we're all sons of God, honestly. Okay, if you look back at Luke, you follow the righteous line back, comes to Adam, the son of God. That means that through the righteous line, the son of God relationship passed on down to Jesus, to Yeshua. So, but Adam knew his wife again, bore a son, and named him Seth. And Seth was the beginning of the earthly righteous line. Okay, and Cain was the beginning of the earthly iniquitous line. So, and that earthly iniquitous line was originally wiped out at the flood, but it will begin again later on, because man has a tendency to have evil in his heart, because of the fall, the imperfections of the fall, and therefore iniquity, builds itself up over and over again in history. So, again, Genesis 4:25, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him a son was born, and he named him Enosh. Then men began to call on the name of the Lord. Okay, so there have been many things stated on then men began to call on the name of the Lord. And one of those things can be that is said is that men began to understand the character of the Lord. Because if we look at name there, name is actually Shem, and Shem is character, not a verbal utterance like Joe or Frank. It's a Shem is actually the character of the individual. So like the Bible tells us, you'll know someone by their fruits, their character, with their works, the things that they do. So in this case, it's probably more like men began, at least in this line here, to call on the name, the character of God. So that, folks, is Genesis 4. And as I indicated, I will go back and do Genesis 1 through 3, and actually put them up on YouTube and send out the links. So, because I know a lot of people miss Genesis 1 through 3. I'm going to put this up on YouTube very shortly. So, hopefully everyone will get a chance to come back and view this later on. So, may Yeshua bless you. May he keep you. May his grace be upon you. Thank you very much, and have a blessed rest of the day.